Why is it? Oh, heck.
It says it's streaming on Facebook, but you may have to jump through some hoops. I don't know.
Yes, I think we're good. Yay. Well, there we are. Oh, heck. Why am I not seeing you, Shanna?
I have
Okay.
it says no idea. On Facebook, but you may have to jump through some hoops. I don't know.
So, we were going to use Zoom because it's always easier.
Well, what's the plan? What's going on?
I don't know. Why am I not seeing you, Shanna?
I have it says no idea. On Facebook, but you may have to jump through some hoops.
Okay.
So, we were going to use Zoom.
Okay, there we are. We're good. I'm turning my phone off. Okay. Hey, Facebook. Y'all know that it is my MO to, why are we hearing okay, hold on.
There's something going on.
This is a cluster right now.
Facebook doesn't want you to use Zoom.
Okay, there we go. I think we're good. I think I'm muted, so we shouldn't get feedback. So, hey, Facebook, y'all know it is always my way of doing things to just give you a little bit of entertainment before we start because, yeah, that's just how I roll, and it's okay. So if you needed a laugh, I hope you got a laugh. We don't know what we're doing, but we like to just learn as we go. So that's life. I'm so excited that y'all would hop on. I hope you're hopping on and just joining me today. I know you know that I have been doing some lives with some amazing women for just Women's History Month. These ladies are just near and dear to my heart. They are women from all walks of life, all doing their thing, doing it their way, and just making a difference in their world. So I am so excited today to introduce you to my wonderful, amazing, awesome, good friend, Miss Shanna Kurtz. Shanna actually lives in a small town where my sister moved, and I'd never even heard of the town before, and called Cuero. Well, I don't know if you want people knowing where you live, but anyway, they can't find you, girl. You're out in the boonies. With your chickens and all the good things. So anyway, thank you, Shanna, for hopping on today.
Thank you for having me. I feel like so hyped up right now.
Well, I am because I was like,
I'm gonna call you every day and be like, tell me all the things again. I'm not feeling it. Tell me all the things.
You're awesome. You're amazing.
Oh, you're the best.
And
you're the best.
I'll PayPal you your payment after we finish it.
Yes.
Anyway, so Shanna, would you just start out just by giving the people that are watching, the women that are watching, just kind of a brief overview on, if you had to say, who is Shanna Kurtz, who would you say that you are?
Oh my gosh, that's so crazy. That's not an easy question. Have people been answering that easy?
And then in a minute or less.
Okay. Yeah. So Shanna Kurtz is a small town girl from humble beginnings who got a cancer diagnosis at the age of 20 that was an incurable cancer diagnosis. And instead of that being the worst part of my life, it turned out to be the biggest blessing of my life. And I could go into that, but Laura only gave me 1 minute. And now, and fast forward, I'm a 42-year-old single and satisfied. I love Jesus, and he rules my life, and I've built a life of freedom, and my life looks just like what fits me. I mean, like that. I mean, you described it when you're like women who are doing it their way, and I did it my way. I didn't do what the world said my life had to look like, and built something just for me.
That is amazing. Wow. In a minute or less, now we can all go home. Now we know who Shanna is. Okay. So a big part of your life, I don't know that, I think that the way that you put it about the worst thing has become the best thing is just such a wonderful representation of God's grace and how he always takes the 100%. Things the enemy meant for evil and he turns them for our good. So tell me kind of on that part of your journey, because you said you were 20. Is that what you said?
Yeah, I was 20.
And you're now a little bit older, not much. Yeah. But tell me how you did that in your own way, because you said I did it. I've done things my own way. Kind of what you did different, maybe than the natural way, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So I had a crunchy mom. Like I have my
Aw.
mother's journals. She's passed. She actually died of breast cancer about 5.5 years ago, but she was a journaler. And right now I'm going through the journal that she had from when she was like age like 32, 33 to like
Oh,
37. And in it, it talks about her really, she went in to be a clinical nutritionist out of like nowhere. Like she went to school, like I didn't know this until I read it in her journal. I remember her taking a trip to St. Louis, but I didn't know
uh-huh.
it was about natural health. Now think of this, at the time, I'm probably 4 or 5 years old. And she's talking in her journal about she doesn't know why she's so passionate about learning natural health. She just feels like even if it just helped her family, it would be worth it. Like she didn't see herself doing a career for it, but because she couldn't figure that out. She was a school teacher
Yeah.
and 5
And
kids.
that wasn't like a big deal. I mean, I feel like that's more of a common thing now, but
It is common.
it
And back
wasn't.
then,
Yeah,
no, it wasn't.
at
I mean, I
all.
was one of the kids that we grew up on echinacea tea. If you had a stomach ache, you were drinking peppermint tea, homeopathics. She had a homeopathic doctor in San Antonio. So I've just always gone the natural route. And so, I mean, that kind of I had the right mom that had the right, like, and I think about like how God must have intersected her life to put her on the path that set me up. Because listen, if my mom had been the kind of person that said, we do exactly what the doctor says and what he says we take to the bank, and that's the only thing. I love doctors, don't get me wrong.
Right.
But my doctor said I had 6 months to live and there was nothing they could do except a chemo drug that most people die from within a year or two. So I didn't have any options. But luckily, my mom's life was intersected to have a lot of belief in natural things. And so that's the route we went. I went and got a naturopath doctor. I changed my diet. I went vegetarian. I mean, if there's anything I could tell somebody who's gone through
Right.
cancer,
Yeah.
or if you've had cancer, I think a lot of times people think like, oh, I'm done with that. I even went through that phase. Like, oh, I've already had it. I'm good now. I can do what I want. No, I had a doctor in Switzerland during my mom's journey, and he said, your body grows cancer. What are you doing
Oh,
to
wow.
change your biology? This is not something like one and done. I did chemo or surgery or whatever. Like, because I kept saying I had surgery, and he's like, no, 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 your body grows cancer. What are you doing, Shanna? And so, like, that's a big part of it. But I want to give the other side of it, and it is the mindset, the belief, the having faith in something bigger, knowing your own worth. Like it, I remember, and this, I'm a Jesus girl, so like I'm guessing we're okay with this. I remember
Oh, yeah.
after my
We're okay with
diagnosis,
that.
a few years in. Now, let me just preface this, like, because I'm sharing on my social media too, so I'm being super transparent and vulnerable here. But I had a childhood that, my dad was a disabled Vietnam veteran, and I love him dearly. And like one of the biggest areas that God has been faithful to me is reclaiming every inch of that relationship with my father. And we are so close. We live next door. He's one of the most precious people, but he had his own things struggling with in a young family like, think about it. It's early 70s. And, he couldn't make any money. He only had one hand. Emotionally, he was traumatized, and so it affected my family. And I don't want to go into the details of that. Right. But there are things about my childhood that, like there were mindset things to go through. And, so I say all that your belief, the things that happen, your belief, your trauma, all of that comes into play. Right. And so if you don't feel worthy, if you don't feel like you're meant to be here, like that God put you here for a purpose, it's so easy to throw in the towel. I remember having a conversation with God and thinking, I was in my 20s, and I remember like it, again, I people hear from God in different ways. I won't get into that. Like that's, but it was like, Shanna, if you want an out, you have it.
Mm,
Like, if you want an out, you have it.
that's awesome.
And I didn't take it. And and it's all like everything, like I wish, like everything's connected, right? So here, I want to tell you the beautiful part about my childhood. If you study, my father struggled with alcohol. So if you study what it looks like to be the child of an alcoholic, there are some negative codependency. There's things that you get in your toolbox that are super crappy that you've got to work through. Okay. Remind me to circle back what the working through it looks like. You've got to work through that. Right. But there's also incredible things that were the fruit of my childhood. So let me, like, without going into, there's a great book called Perfect Daughters. It's specifically about girls and the daughter being the children of alcoholics. We become perfectionists. There's a lot of like codependency and nastiness, right? But at the same time, I found this list of things that are like positive attributes, like that we generally believe that we can do anything we put our minds to. We don't see the limitations. We feel self-sufficient. We don't, like, if somebody says we can't do it, we don't necessarily believe them. Like, and I think like God gave me the childhood to set me up with the right mindset to fight an incurable cancer. Like, so it like in the, like, if you look at that from the big picture, I could still be upset that I had not a perfect childhood, but I'm not. It was the right childhood to equip me to do what I needed to do to have the right mindset to get over a cancer that like the equipping came in the tragedy. I think of the story of Jonah, like how often, we think about like the whale was the rescue. Like we think when you find yourself in the belly of tragedy and the darkness sitting in the pit, first of all, Jesus is there. Like he is not afraid of the stinky and the nasty. He is there. Right. And, it's in that place that was the rescue. Like, I could be upset about things that happened along the way, just like I believe my cancer was my rescue. It changed everything. Like if you look at, I don't know how much time we have here, but if you look at me getting a cancer diagnosis at 20, changed my perspective. I lived my life like there was not going to be extra time. Like everything was of value. So think about, I had a relationship with my mother that all of a sudden we were so close, and we were just like we got to do so many things together because we treated the next, like we thought I was going to die. And it turns out my mom died when I was 35, right? 37. And so, but I think if I wouldn't have gotten that cancer diagnosis, would we have lived? So when I think about my relationship with my mother, there was nothing left unsaid and there was nothing left undone. We loved each other unconditionally, fully. And I point that back to a cancer diagnosis that I got. Right. And so it's like, in the grand scheme of things, I think we look at what our tragedies or our challenges are right now, and you just don't have the ending yet. You just don't know how this is really a blessing and it's really something for your toolbox. And so that's the cancer story part. And so I went natural, had a big surgery about 10 years ago. I'm 12 years post a radical surgery. Most people, I think, don't live past 5 years after that surgery. And it's I'm a miracle kid for sure.
Yes, you are.
Like God did his thing. He like showed up and showed out.
That is so cool. I don't know. There's been several people, I'm not sure who the quote you actually attribute the quote to, but that says, life happens for you and not to you.
Mhm.
And I think that everything that you just so beautifully said is that, we get stuck in that place of woe is me and in the pit when we're going through things. And I think that, that's a human response. It's a natural thing to just keep our eyes focused on, what's right in front of us, but to be able to just hold on to, there is a next chapter. And in that next chapter, we are going to see, we're promised that we're going to see good come from that. And it's not, I can tell you in my own life, it's never been the good that I was expecting. It's never played out the way that I have drawn up the scenarios in my head. If I could write my story, I would write it this way. But thank God I'm not writing my story, because like you said, then we wouldn't be prepared for, for the road ahead, for the things that come. We're not able to see the good. And that's a beautiful thing I think about you that I really, really appreciate, is you do see the good, even in the hard times and the difficult times. You've trained your mind to look for the silver lining, to be grateful for the day, to be grateful, for the next moment that you have. And that's just, we can all learn from that for sure.
I think that's a God gift, like that big vision of, I think that's just a straight, like
it is. He said eternity in our hearts, he says, and says not to keep our eyes fixed on things, of this earth, but to set them heavenward. And so I don't know, it's just a beautiful thing. So if you're out there, people, and you're going through something, because you know what? We all go through stuff.
Yeah.
You know, just take a moment and breathe and just know that God's with you and he's not ever, ever, ever going to leave or forsake you. And there is joy coming in the morning. So
Yeah.
cool. Okay. So that cancer story, your cancer story. And to me, I think there's so much more to you than just cancer. I know that in our business, sometimes we kind of put you in that little cancer
Right.
box. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And there's so much more to you than that. So just know that. But tell me a little bit, because I know so many women who are out there who are single. Maybe they are divorced. Maybe they've never been married. Maybe they've been married multiple times and then now they find themselves single again. And they're not at a place of contentment. They're searching, they're looking, they're settling. I see that all the time. They're settling. And I mean, I can't tell you how many women I've told, you know what? You're better off alone than you are in a miserable marriage.
Yeah.
I mean, that you just are, but it's hard to see that and it's hard to be in that place. So tell us just a little bit about your, is singleness a word? Is that, because you're not alone, you know what I'm saying? But tell us a little bit about that. And if you could encourage someone with your journey and where you've walked to where you are now and your contentment with that. And I don't think that means that you never want to have a mate or find a mate. But just tell us, I'll shut up and you tell us all.
Yeah. Thank you for letting me speak on that. Cause I do know that the way that I do single isn't common. Right. Or it doesn't feel like it's common. Yeah. So I've been, just a little bit of backstory. I was not raised in the church. I wasn't a good little church girl. I was the opposite. I was promiscuous at a very young age. I lived on my own at the age of, I think 15, 16. And, I did what I want for many years. Most of my relationships had overlap, not proud of that. But I was constantly looking for fulfillment in relationships, whether it was physical or emotional or whatever it was. So, fast forward, without going into all the stuff along the way, I ended up in a breakup, I guess about 5 years ago. And I realized that I needed to do some work. Like I was, I'll tell you, there's something that you said. One of the things that I heard God say, felt God say, however you want me to translate that, Holy Spirit, was, so you know how when you're in a relationship and you're nitpicking all the things that are wrong with them, right? And I know the ladies, even maybe some men watching this know what I'm talking about. It's like, you're like so frustrated that this is the human that you're with and they've got these flaws and, and it's like, it was very clearly like the Lord being like, you're looking at the wrong thing. Like you're looking at all of this, which may or may not be true. Doesn't matter. What I want to know, Shanna, is why are you willing to settle when I tell you you don't have to? Like you need to do the work that makes you willing to be with the wrong partner, with the wrong goals and the wrong, like whatever it is, right? Like, so I found myself going through that, and it was, we'd built a house together and I thought we were going to get married and all of those things. And it was just really my whole life kind of uprooted. And it was almost like everything that I had built, the Lord had to look, this is a great little, I want to give this little side. You know how we have words, like this is my word of the year. So God gave me a word right before my mom died, and it was rooted. Wow. Let me tell you what happens to be rooted. First, everything must be uprooted. Okay. So don't be surprised when you go into a season and it's the opposite of the thing that you expect. My next season was build. Guess what? Everything I had built was torn down. Right. The next season, the next word that I had was fly. Guess what? All the things that tied me down had to be looked at closely. And right. It's actually, it's the opposite thing. Now I'm in a season that my word is bold. Guess what happened? I lost my voice. Like I wasn't comfortable sharing my authenticity. The opposite of bold is what? Like, so there, like, and I say all that to say, so my life got uprooted, and I want to give you that big picture so you understand that's the contraction before the expansion. Right. And then, I spent the next next many years just looking at things. And this is what this looks like. When I say it looks like, you have to just walk with Jesus on it, right? You've got to walk it out. What does that look like? For me, it was when a feeling comes up, rejection, fear, loneliness, all of that. It's very easy, and we have lots of ways to do it. You can scroll social media, you can turn to alcohol, you can go hang out with your friends. There's a million things that you can do to not look at that thing. That's what we've been trained to do. But instead, it's like I felt like the Holy Spirit tapping me on the shoulder, Jesus, God, however you want to do it, tapping you on the shoulder and saying, hey, Shanna, but have you looked at it with me? Like, let me look at it with you. And if you'll do this, I'm going to take the ground that it has, right? Like, we're going to take that ground. And that it can be painful. It can be time consuming, right? Like there's a lot, and you have to get comfortable with being unseen, right? There's a great book. If you find yourself in the season where you're like, everybody is getting what they want in their limelight, and it's like, I have all this potential and I'm not walking in it and nobody sees it but me, read a book called Anonymous, Alicia Britt Cole. It talks about Jesus's 30 years of anonymity and how that built him for his short years of ministry. The work was done in the anonymous years for him to be who he right? And so the anonymous years are so important. And so like that's the work part of it, I think, is really making space and you be running inventory on your own actions, thought patterns. And y'all, it just takes time. But here's the thing, at the end of the day, I had one of my friends I was on the phone with the other day, and she's like, your life, it looks like you're not lonely. And I'm like, I am not. I have the wholeness that I have in Jesus. I'm not looking for a man to complete me or make me happy.
Yes.
That's not their job. I wish I could take every 15-year-old girl that has that ache inside her, that knows that there is whole love out there for her. And I want her to know the only reason that she has that inside of her, the only reason that she knows that to be true is because her maker put it there. And the only person who can satisfy that is him. And so we go out looking in the world to fill that thing. And it was never designed to be filled by things or by money or by men or by none of that. It wasn't supposed to be. Not this side of glory are we going to have that wholeness without just seeking the Lord. So that's it's not easy. I'm not going to say that it's easy to I'm not sexually of the world like everybody else is. I don't date like other people date. I don't judge my compatibility by the way that the world judges compatibility. And that means I look very different in this world, and I'm okay with it. Like I'm okay with building a life that fits me, and looks like a lot of chickens and dogs. And, I had to, I think that in my life, I was like, man, if I wanted to have a pond and a nice little farm or ranch, I better marry somebody that has one of those. Nah, girl, I went and got it myself. I put my own pond in this year, right? Like if you want a pond, go get yourself a pond. It's like, build the life that makes you happy so that you won't settle. Right? Like if you're walking in your purpose, if you're doing something that fills you up and makes you feel whole, and you're seeking the Lord. And I'll tell you, here's my last tip on single ladies. This is a prayer I have prayed for 5 years, and God is so good on this one. Lord, please remove anybody from my life quickly that does not belong there. Yeah. And I'll tell you what, when it's time for them to go, you're like, oh, that's the Lord just handling his business. That's the Lord just handling his business, right? So I hope that I kind of bounced all over the place, but I hope that was a little insight.
Yeah, no, I think it's, I've always prayed for my girls. I never want them to be dependent on a man. Mm-hmm. And I know that may sound in some circles like I'm some sort of women's liberation, whatever, but I don't. I've seen so many women settle for less than they deserve because they're dependent. They're dependent financially, they're dependent emotionally, they're dependent on all those things from another man. And I don't want my girls to be dependent on a man. I want them to know the love of a man. the love of a man that is whole in himself, and to come together, both two whole individuals. I don't think whole means perfect, because, you know, for a long time, I talked about soul holes and the different soul holes that I had, and just asked the Lord, sought the Lord just to, you know, deal with those holes, those emotional things, because that's the core of kind of who we are. And you try to fill those with different things, just like you said, the drugs, the sex, the whatever it is, the food, it doesn't matter. We feel those things. And so to be whole inside and be whole in our emotions doesn't mean that we're perfect. And it doesn't mean that we have to expect perfection from a mate or from a man. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But it does just mean that we can come and know, you know what, in all of my imperfectness, I am wholly loved, you know, by the Father, number one. And when you know that, that changes everything. And it, to me, it allows you the freedom to be vulnerable enough to be wholly loved by another human, if that makes any sense. And so
totally, I'm right there with you. Like the women being able to provide for themselves, that's a huge motivator. My mom got married and divorced 3 times, and I watched her start from scratch every time. And a man, as a little girl, I watched that and I was like, that's not happening to me. That's not happening to me. And it was a big motivator. It's also why I'm so, all of it goes together, right? Like it's, you know, with what you and I do, we empower women, we put them on a path to make another stream of income. And I'm so passionate about it because I think back to I don't know if you know anything about the ACEs quiz. I'm kind of tying all this together, but there's something about childhood adversity. It's an adversity childhood score. And the more trauma that a child is exposed to before they're 18 increases their chances of having things like cancer, heart disease, promiscuity, drug problems. Basically, if you can minimize a child's trauma before the age of 18, we can set them up for a healthier life, right? But I think of how many women financially, it's so hard to make it on your own. And I know personally, friends, my own mom, and other, you know, just along the way, people who stay in situations where, you know, it's not necessarily the best, and kids are exposed to things maybe you don't want them exposed to, but financially don't have no choice. So, I mean, it all goes together. I mean, you know, young moms that are in a relationship where there's fighting in front of their children, I just want to shake them and be like, do you want your kid to have heart disease or cancer when they're 30? Like, do you want this for them? If not, you need to find a way out. Like, this is not something that can be put off, right? So it all ties together. So I love your heart. I loved your video that you did with your daughter, I guess a couple nights ago, last night before. Oh my gosh, putting words to her feelings and having her articulate things, that I was so moved. I love what you're doing here, and super honored to even be a part of it.
Well, I am like just over the moon excited that you would come and just speak into people, because I think that that's our heart, or that's my heart. I feel like that's your heart as well. You know, however we can help. I know that if I look at things that have changed me, words have made the biggest impact on me, either for not good or for the better. And to be able to speak life and just encourage women. You know what? You can do it. It does take work, and it takes I mean, it's kind of gut wrenching at times, you know, to really look at yourself in the mirror and say, you know what, I'm in a situation I created. I know I found myself there, you know, I'm in a situation that I created. This isn't someone else's fault. This is a result of choices that I've made, and I can continue to live in those, or I can do the hard work and start making different choices. And it starts with just one. You know, it starts with that one opportunity to be brave, that one opportunity to make a new choice. And then just continuing to string those together and know when you make a mistake, it's not the end of the world. You know, I always associate the flat tire syndrome, how we screw up once and then we just go and we don't go and, you know, stab the other 3 tires, you know, but that's what we do to ourselves. And I mean, God's grace is sufficient. It is so sufficient. It has always proved sufficient in my life. And I know that it's proved sufficient. I can't even talk now, sufficient in your life. And it will just continue. You know, it's just going to continue. Our stories are just getting started. So.
I love it.
Anyway,
Awesome.
thank you.
Thank
so
you. Thank you so much.
Go enjoy your day, your chickens,
My
all
chickens.
the things. Yep.
Okay.
All right.
Love you.
Thank you, everybody. We will see you soon.